Video 4, we are talking about the art of surrender in intimacy, and the fourth video is about bias. The sequence again is that you have to be aware of your body, you have to heal your body, you have to take care of your body, you have to listen to your body. Once you listen to your body and know what your body needs and create some space in your body so that you're not holding toxic emotions, you're not holding old wounds and trauma, from that place, then you can really breathe. And you have to learn the art of breath in Tantra and sexuality, because Tantra says it's about breath, sound, and movement. You have to be able to breathe. You have to be able to breathe into difficult moments. You have to be able to breathe into the suffering in your soul. You have to breathe into the places that you are contracting. You have to be able to breathe into pain when it arises. You have to recognize, am I inhaling? Am I exhaling? Am I living life fully? Am I dying away? What is causing me to expand my breath or contract my breath? Can I stay in sync, in breath with my partner? Can I feel him or her through that breath? Can I stay fully present in my body, in my breath, and then finally in my being? Do I actually know who I am? Am I playing a role? Am I being authentic? Am I being what somebody wants me to be? Am I being a role that they need, but actually that is not me, that will create resentment over time? Only once you are fully in your body, consciously aware of your breath, and absolutely have touch with an expanded version of your being that is not attached to an egoic picture or archetype that I always have to be good, or I always have to be nasty, or I always have to be my mother, or I always have to be the person that you want me to be. Only once you are fully able to be in your own being and keep allowing more and more of your being throughout this entire life and never-ending process of being fully in your being and sharing that beingness with others that deeply love you, and recognizing where you can be that full beingness and where there are moments that it is inappropriate to be fully revealed to others because it causes them pain and suffering because they can't go there with you, or that they will judge it. So finding a person in your life that you can really share the intense, vital fullness of your being is an incredibly powerful, sexy, attractive thing. Because your beingness can pull someone else more and more into their own beingness. They become more authentic because of your authenticity. They become more present because of your presence. Once you have body, breath, being, only then do you start to really understand your own biases. This is important. People sometimes try and do this in the reverse direction. They start to try and look at, their idiosyncrasies and their biases, how they see certain things. I wanted to bring in the definition of bias here for a second, because I think sometimes people don't really understand what this is. So bias is prejudice in favor or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way that is considered to be unfair. So we have a bias against people who are not like us. We have a bias against religions because of some childhood trauma or what somebody told us about a particular religion. We have a bias against skin colors because we think one person or one skin color is superior to another. Bias is also a concentration or interest in one particular area or subject. So you can have a bias around Zen, that Zen is the only way. It's the only path. It's the only tool. You can have a bias against religion, that my religious book is better than your religious book. You can have a bias against a healing system or tool, that rebirthing is the best thing since sliced bread. It's the most powerful thing. It's the only thing that will work. Everything else is bullshit. So all of these are biases. And biases are a systematic distortion of a statistical result due to a factor not allowed for in its derivation. That's a literal translation. Looking at Webster's right here. Let's look at that again. A systematic distortion of a statistical result due to a factor not allowed for in its derivation. Meaning, your bias is a distortion field that has been created because of something that has happened to you, that you have made a judgment on, that is not based on all the information. It's based on pieces of the information. It's not based on the total truth. So a bias is also, in electronics, considered to be a steady voltage, magnetic field, or other factor applied to an electronic system or device to cause it to operate over a predetermined range. So notice that one too. A bias is a magnetic field that is a predetermined magnetic field. Your bias is going to go a certain direction and it's going to have a certain outcome every time, every single time. And it's operating consistently over predetermined action. If you go to church, if you go to confession on Saturday and go to church on Sunday and you do that all the time, then you get to go to heaven. If I meditate every single day for 20 minutes without fail, then I will eventually become enlightened. That's a bias. It's where we feel or show inclination or prejudice for or against someone or something. So a bias can be what you feel is positive, like I'm going to do this and I'm going to get enlightened first and I'm going to get home first. So I'm going to do this tool because that teacher said that this is what's going to get me there. But it also is a fear pattern that is a prejudice. I'm afraid I can't get there on my own, that therefore I have to do this particular thing, and I'm going to do this particular thing no matter what anybody tells me, because I'm afraid that I actually don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So I'm going to go this direction no matter what. That is a bias. In spirituality and in consciousness and in the evolution of sexuality and intimacy, it is actually very important to recognize what your biases are, and to, once you are fully in being, the biases become really obvious. Like all of a sudden you go, why did I think that? That's crazy. I mean, that, you know, and you realize that all these biases are based on fear and prejudice. A fear of not being good enough, a fear of that you're going to be doing it wrong, a fear that the teacher is going to come down on you, a fear that you're going to be thrown out of the group or the system. I think that's so fascinating that we have these biases, but it's only when we're fully in our being and we recognize who our authentic self is that we actually start to understand that all the rest of this is bullshit. All of the, like, all these little superstitions. Well, you can't do that because then you'll fail at this. You have to have a rabbit's foot. Our biases are our rabbit's feet. These superstitions that we've made up in our head out of sheer fear and prejudice But until you're fully in your body, you don't know you're doing them. If you're not breathing, you won't have the awareness start to filter in of how contracted you are. It's like until you clear this stuff out of your body, you don't recognize that your woundings are based on the prejudices and the biases that other people have enforced upon you, pushed into your energy field, and you have accepted as your own. That you have to breathe to get them out. That you have to keep breathing to clear these things and these energies in order for you to understand how intensely that energy field of another person has been influencing, stopping your progression. How are your own biases being projected onto others, trying to get them to agree with you because your ego needs to be right? How are your biases being projected onto your mate? Well, if she would just do this, then I would love her. If she would look a certain way or she would act a certain way, then I would be more open. Again, all of this is bullshit. It's this place where this is your bias being projected onto another person. It's so unfair. It's so completely unfair. But until you're really accepting who you are, you can't possibly accept who another person is. That's what's tricky. Having this balance inside of your body has to happen first in order for you to recognize the biases of your ego mind. Because the body will hold these biases. Your breath will continue to perpetuate the holding of those biases. Your being won't come fully in to tell you that you have the biases because you're not letting it in. And yet those biases continue to infect your intimacy, your reason to surrender or not to surrender, the rules that you have put in place in your relationship that you're going to open when he stops putting you down. I'm like, screw that. I'm going to open because I need to open. It's not about the other person. I need to open for my being. When you make yourself the priority, only then can you start to see the projections of the biases that we live in this biased world, and we are swimming through mud that are the biases and the projections of centuries of humanity's belief systems and prejudices that are still running around infecting people one way or the other. How are your biases stopping you from surrendering? Notice what you have in your head. What are the things you say in your head? I can't surrender until he is nice. I can't open fully and let him in until he stops complaining. It's funny. You have to laugh. This starts to be ridiculous. These biases are huge. They're huge. They are what continues to perpetuate the suffering of this world. And only you can begin to stop that. Okay? Thank you, everybody, for listening.